Mary knew something was wrong the moment her 9-year-old daughter Maya stepped through the front door without her usual burst of noise and excitement. Maya normally entered like a tiny tornado, talking before she even removed her shoes. But tonight she walked in slowly with tense shoulders and eyes fixed on the floor. Simeon followed behind her carrying her small overnight bag, his face carefully unreadable. "They were fine," he said quickly, avoiding Mary's gaze. But Maya didn't smile, didn't speak, and didn't even look up, and the heaviness of that silence made Mary's stomach twist. Mary watched Maya walk straight to her room and close the door gently, not angrily, just firmly, as if shutting the world out. She waited for a moment, hoping Maya might turn back or say something, but nothing came. Simeon shrugged helplessly, pretending it was nothing even though his expression betrayed concern. "Maybe she's tired," he suggested weakly. Mary shook her head softly. "Tired children still talk," she whispered. She prepared a simple dinner, hoping routine might settle whatever was unsettling Maya, but even the smell of food didn't pull her out. Something serious had happened. When Mary knocked gently on Maya's door and asked if she was hungry, a long pause came first, followed by a small, quiet "not really." The answer startled Mary because Maya usually treated food like a daily celebration. Mary tried to keep her voice calm. "All right, sweetheart. I'll leave a plate out for you." Maya didn't open the door, she only whispered, "Okay." Mary returned to the kitchen where Simeon stood staring blankly at his phone. They ate quietly together, listening for any noise from Maya's room, but the silence settled over the house like a heavy blanket. After dinner, Mary washed the dishes with more force than she intended, trying to scrub away the worry that kept growing. Simeon dried each dish slowly, staying close because he sensed how troubled she felt. Mary knocked on Maya's door again. "Honey, can I come in?" After a long hesitation, Maya answered softly, "Yes." Mary entered and found her daughter curled on the bed, hugging her knees tightly. Her eyes were red and shiny, showing signs of tears recently wiped away. "Sweetheart, what happened?" Mary asked gently. Maya only gave a tiny, frightened shrug. Mary sat beside her carefully, giving her space but staying close enough to feel supportive. "Did something happen at Grandma Vanessa's house?" she asked in a calm, steady tone. Maya looked at her briefly, then turned away again as if the truth weighed too much to speak. "Not really," she whispered, though her trembling voice said otherwise. Mary didn't push. She simply stayed there with her until Maya's breathing began to calm. "Do you want me to stay for a little while?" she asked softly. After a few seconds, Maya nodded and Mary stayed until she fell asleep. Later that night, long after Maya had fallen asleep, Mary lay awake listening to the quiet house. Something still felt wrong, sitting heavy against her chest like a warning. Around midnight she heard a strange sound, soft, sticky, and familiar. Tape. The faint rip of someone wrapping something. Mary sat up sharply, her heart pounding. Simeon was already asleep beside her, one arm covering his face. The sound came again, followed by the gentle crinkle of paper. Mary slipped out of bed quietly, walked down the hallway, and saw that Maya's door was cracked open with a small strip of light spilling out. Mary pushed the door open slowly and stopped cold. Maya was sitting on the floor surrounded by wrapping paper, tape, and ribbons from an old gift bag. In front of her sat her silver laptop, the one Mary and Simeon had given her for her editing projects. But instead of using it, Maya was trying to wrap it like a present. Mary's chest tightened painfully. "Sweetheart," she whispered carefully, "what are you doing?" Maya froze, tape stuck to her fingers. She looked up with wide, frightened eyes, and in that moment Mary knew this wasn't simple play. Something had driven her to do this. Mary knelt down beside her, trying not to scare her further. "Honey, why are you wrapping your laptop?" she asked softly. Maya's lips trembled as she blinked hard, trying to keep the tears from falling. "I'm giving it to Jason," she whispered. Mary frowned in confusion. "Giving it to him? For his birthday?" Maya shook her head, her voice cracking. "Grandma Vanessa said it's not fair. She said he doesn't have anything this nice. She said a good granddaughter would share." Mary's breath caught as the words settled like ice in her bones. This wasn't sharing. This was pressure. Mary reached gently for Maya's hand. "Sweetheart, who told you that you had to give away something you love?" she asked. Maya hesitated, then whispered, "Grandma Vanessa." Her voice shook harder. "And Grandpa was there too." Mary felt anger rise hot and fast, but she kept her voice calm. Did she really say you couldn't call her grandma if you didn't give Jason your laptop? Maya nodded quickly, tears finally spilling over. She said if I don't, then I'm not acting like family. She said I'm spoiled. Mary felt something inside her snap, not in rage but in fierce protectiveness. Behind her, Mary heard the soft creak of the hallway floor. Simeon stood at the doorway, hair messy, eyes half awake but alert. What's going on? He asked, stepping carefully into the room. Mary looked up at him, her voice tight. Your mother told our daughter she has to give Jason her laptop or she can't call her grandma anymore. Simeon stared at Maya, then at the partially wrapped laptop on the floor. Maya, he whispered, did Grandma Vanessa really say that? Maya nodded, wiping her tears with small shaky hands. And in that moment, Simeon's face changed in a way Mary had never seen before. Simeon walked deeper into the room, his expression shifting from sleepy confusion to stunned understanding. He knelt beside Maya, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. Sweetheart, listen to me, he said softly. You are not giving your laptop to anyone. Do you understand? Maya swallowed hard and nodded, though uncertainty lingered in her eyes. Simeon looked at Mary and she saw something fierce rising inside him, something she had never seen when it came to his parents. He stood up slowly, pulled his phone from his pocket, and unlocked it with a determined swipe as if preparing for a storm. Mary watched him, surprised by the sudden seriousness in his movements. Simeon, she whispered, it's past midnight. He didn't answer. Instead, he scrolled to his parents' names and pressed the call button. Maya held onto her pillow, eyes wide with fear and hope mixed together. The ringing continued for a few seconds, then the screen lit up as Grandma Vanessa answered. Her face appeared, confused by the late call, but still carrying that polished expression she used during disagreements. Simeon, honey, she said tightly, why are you calling at this hour? Simeon didn't waste a second. Mom, he said in a calm, controlled voice, did you tell Maya she has to give Jason her laptop? Vanessa blinked, then forced a smile. Well, she said, that's not exactly how I phrased it. Simeon's voice sharpened. Did you tell her she can't call you grandma if she refuses? Vanessa's smile thinned. She needs to learn generosity, she said. You gave her something too expensive. It isn't fair to Jason. Simeon's jaw clenched. Beside her, Mary placed a hand on Maya's back as the child trembled. The conversation had crossed from misunderstanding to manipulation. Vanessa continued speaking, unaware, or refusing to see, the damage she'd caused. If she wants to be a proper granddaughter, she said coldly, she needs to behave like one. Simeon steadied his breath, but his voice dropped lower. If you want to be her grandparents, he said slowly, then you need to behave like it. Vanessa froze. Grandpa Daniel appeared behind her, confused and tired, rubbing his forehead. What's going on? He asked. Simeon didn't repeat himself. His eyes stayed fixed on the screen, firm and unwavering. It was the first time he'd ever spoken to them like this. Simeon ended the call without another word, the screen going dark with a quiet finality that echoed through the room. Maya stared at him like she had just witnessed something impossible. Simeon knelt again and took her hands gently. You do not owe anyone your happiness, he said softly. You don't have to give away something you love just to make adults feel better. Maya sniffed, nodding slowly as the fear began to lift. Mary watched them both, feeling a mixture of relief and awe. For the first time in years, Simeon stood between his daughter and the harm disguised as family. After the call ended, Simeon stood up and walked out of Maya's room with a heavy breath, leaving Mary and Maya sitting quietly together. Mary wrapped an arm around her daughter, whispering, "You're safe. Nobody can force you to give anything away." Maya leaned into her, still shaken but relieved. A few minutes later, Simeon returned holding his phone loosely at his side, his face pale but steady. "We're not going to Jason's birthday tomorrow," he said firmly. Mary nodded immediately, she understood without needing details. Maya blinked up at him, surprised. "It's okay, sweetheart," Simeon assured her. "You're not going anywhere you feel unsafe." When Maya finally drifted back to sleep, Mary and Simeon walked into the living room in silence. Simeon lowered himself onto the couch like his legs had lost strength. "I've been letting them take advantage of me for years," he said quietly. Mary sat beside him and listened. I kept telling myself they just needed help, he continued. But they never stopped needing. And now they're hurting Maya. Mary touched his hand gently. Then it ends now. Simeon nodded, eyes dark with realization. For the first time he understood the cost of keeping peace with people who didn't value it. Simeon opened his laptop and pulled up their bank statements. Mary watched as line after line appeared. Monthly transfers, auto payments, quiet financial drains he had been covering for years. I didn't want to burden you, he whispered, ashamed. Mary shook her head. Protecting people who hurt you isn't responsibility, she said softly. Simeon exhaled shakily and began canceling each transfer. The $500 monthly support for his parents disappeared. Then the $350 assistance for his sister, and the $200 contribution for Jason's activities. He even removed his card from the family phone plan. With every cancellation his shoulders seemed to lift. The next morning, Mary's phone vibrated non-stop. Simeon's sister had posted a dramatic message online, accusing him of abandoning the family right before Jason's birthday. She claimed Simeon had never helped them financially, painting him as selfish and cruel. Mary felt anger rising as she read through the comments. Some relatives believed the post instantly. Others asked questions that went unanswered. Simeon looked at the post over her shoulder, his face falling. They're rewriting everything, he whispered. Mary closed the phone gently. Then show them the truth. Simeon stared at her for a moment, then nodded with quiet resolve. Simeon crafted a calm, measured reply. Nothing emotional, nothing dramatic, just the truth. He explained what had happened with Maya, how Grandma Vanessa told her she wasn't allowed to call her grandma unless she gave away her laptop. He wrote that no child should be threatened or manipulated to satisfy an adult's expectations. Then he listed the financial support he'd provided over the years. Every monthly transfer, every bill, every activity he had covered without complaint. At the end he added one final sentence. I have records to support everything I've said. When he posted it, Mary watched the comment section shift instantly. As soon as Simeon's reply went live, the tone of the discussion changed. More relatives started asking questions. Real questions. She threatened a child? One wrote. She said she wasn't her grandma anymore? Another added. People who had stayed quiet suddenly admitted they had noticed favoritism for years. A few apologized privately, saying they had never known the extent of Simeon's support. His sister stopped responding entirely and Grandma Vanessa deleted a few earlier comments. Maya peeked into the room while Simeon read the messages, and Mary quickly closed her phone so their daughter wouldn't see adults treating her like a bargaining chip. Later that day, Mary answered a private call from a cousin who had attended Jason's birthday party. The woman spoke hesitantly but honestly. Mary, the party was ruined because Jason expected Maya's laptop, she said. He thought it was coming as a gift. Mary closed her eyes tightly. So it wasn't ruined because we weren't there? The cousin sighed. No. He screamed for nearly an hour when he realized he wasn't getting it. Mary thanked her for telling the truth. When she shared the conversation with Simeon, he sat at the table quietly, processing the weight of it all. The more Simeon sat with the truth, the more something hardened inside him. It wasn't anger. It was clarity. Finally seeing his family without the excuses he had wrapped around them for years. They said I never helped, he murmured, staring at the table. Mary touched his shoulder gently. They say whatever protects them, she replied. Simeon nodded slowly. Not anymore. He picked up his phone again, but this time his hands didn't shake. He typed a final message to the family group chat. It was short, direct, and free of apology. And when he sent it, the silence that followed felt peaceful. 2 days later, the doorbell rang. Mary and Simeon exchanged a look. One of those looks only married couples understand. Simeon opened the door. Grandma Vanessa and Grandpa Daniel stood on the porch holding a store-bought cake like it was a peace offering. Simeon didn't move aside. What do you want? He asked. Vanessa forced a smile. We came to make things right, she said sweetly. We want to move forward as a family. Daniel nodded quickly, though his eyes stayed fixed on the ground. Mary watched from the hallway, already knowing this wasn't an apology. It was a negotiation. Vanessa lifted the cake slightly, as if the gesture could erase everything. We should go back to how things were, she said. Simeon didn't blink. There is no going back, he answered calmly. Vanessa's smile faltered. We understand you're upset, she tried again. But cutting us off financially was extreme. Simeon crossed his arms. No money, he repeated slower this time. None. Daniel looked up sharply, realizing this wasn't a conversation. They were being given terms. Vanessa's voice sharpened. Simeon, you're being unreasonable. But Simeon didn't flinch. For the first time in his life he wasn't bending. Simeon stepped forward slightly, his voice steady. If you want contact with Maya, it will be on my terms, he said. Vanessa opened her mouth to argue, but he continued before she could speak. You will apologize to her. You will behave like grandparents, not manipulators. Visits will be supervised. There will be no private discussions. No guilt. No threats. Daniel frowned, looking embarrassed. Vanessa stiffened, unable to argue without losing face. And if I hear even one more request for money, Simeon added quietly, you will not see her at all. The silence that followed was louder than shouting. Vanessa clutched the cake a little tighter, her face reddening. You've changed, she said sharply. Simeon nodded without hesitation. Yes, he replied. I finally have. Daniel shifted uncomfortably, glancing at his wife, then back at Simeon. It was clear they had expected him to fold like he always had. But that version of Simeon was gone. Vanessa held the cake out one last time as if sugar could wipe away consequences. Simeon didn't take it. After a few awkward seconds, Vanessa lowered her hand, realizing the gesture meant nothing. Well, think about what you said, Daniel murmured before they turned to leave. When the door closed, Simeon released a long, unsteady breath, like he had been holding it for years. Mary walked toward him slowly and wrapped her arms around his waist. He held her tightly, his shoulders finally dropping. I should have done this a long time ago, he whispered. Mary shook her head gently. You did it when you were ready, she replied. And when Maya needed you most. Simeon pressed his forehead against hers, grateful and exhausted. The house felt strangely quiet, not tense but relieved, as if a dark cloud had finally passed through and disappeared. 6 months later their lives looked remarkably different. Not because of new money or big changes, but because the constant drain was gone. Mary and Simeon no longer spent nights worrying about bills or unexpected favors. There were no more calls asking for help, no more quiet guilt weighing down their days. They used the extra breathing room to take Maya on weekend trips, beach days, and little adventures she had always dreamed of. Maya flourished. She edited videos, practiced new skills, and grew confident with her laptop again. The joy in her eyes came back slowly, this time brighter. Simeon changed too. He wasn't tense or apologetic anymore. He stopped trying to earn love with money and began building healthier boundaries for himself and his family. Vanessa and Daniel tried to push a few times, testing the edges of the new rules, but Simeon held firm every single time. Eventually they adjusted because they had no choice. Now they saw Maya only every second week. Always supervised, always respectful, always careful. Maya enjoyed these visits more because she wasn't afraid anymore. She no longer felt she had to earn affection by giving away parts of herself. Mary noticed that Maya no longer hesitated before expressing herself. She talked freely about her school projects, her video ideas, and the stories she wanted to create. Simeon watched her with quiet pride, realizing she had regained the confidence that had been shaken that night with the wrapping paper. One afternoon, Maya showed them a short film she edited on her laptop, full of bright colors and clever transitions. I made it all by myself, she said shyly. Mary hugged her, whispering, We're so proud of you. Simeon stood behind them, smiling softly, grateful that their daughter's joy had been restored. Meanwhile, Simeon's relationship with his parents took on a new shape. Less dependent, less painful, more honest. Vanessa tried a few gentle remarks about the past, but Simeon remained firm. We're moving forward, he would say. But things must stay respectful. Daniel sometimes apologized quietly for old behaviors, though he struggled to fully understand them. Simeon didn't expect perfection, he only expected boundaries. And with every supervised visit, those boundaries became clearer. Maya sensed it too. She greeted them without fear because she knew her parents were present, watching, protecting. It was the kind of safety she hadn't realized she needed. During one supervised visit, Vanessa attempted a small test. She leaned toward Maya and said softly, If you ever want to share something special with Jason, you can tell me. Maya froze for a moment. Simeon stepped forward immediately. Mom, he said calmly, we are not doing that again. Vanessa blinked, then leaned back, chastened. I was only suggesting, she muttered. Simeon shook his head. No suggestions. No pressure. She is a child, not a solution to anyone's disappointments. Mary watched the exchange with quiet pride. Simeon was no longer the man who folded under guilt, he now stood tall. Jason also began adjusting to the new reality. Without Simeon's financial support, his mother had to scale back the extras. The expensive outings, the constant upgrades, the unnecessary luxuries. Jason still struggled with entitlement at first, throwing small tantrums when he didn't get what he wanted. But over time, reality reshaped his expectations. He slowly understood that things weren't owed to him simply because he asked. Maya noticed the difference during one visit. Jason approached her shyly and said, "Your laptop looks cool." But this time there was no demand, no expectation, only a simple comment. Maya smiled politely, and that was enough. Mary sometimes thought back to the night she heard the sound of tape in the hallway. It had terrified her then, seeing Maya so desperate to please adults who didn't deserve that kind of control over her. Now, looking at her daughter's confidence, Mary realized how strong children could be when they were protected from manipulation. Simeon often sat with Maya during her editing sessions, asking questions, praising her creativity. Her confidence grew in ways none of them had expected. "One day I'm going to make a movie," Maya said proudly. Mary smiled. "And we'll be your biggest fans." Despite the progress, Vanessa struggled the most with the new rules. She occasionally complained to other relatives, hinting that Mary was influencing Simeon, or that they were being cut out unfairly. But the relatives who once believed her now hesitated, remembering Simeon's clear explanation and the financial truth he finally revealed. Some even reminded Vanessa gently that she had crossed a line. "Threatening a child isn't normal," one cousin told her. Vanessa didn't respond because deep down she knew it was true. Her actions had pushed her son away, not Mary. And she could no longer rewrite that fact. Daniel handled things differently. He reached out to Simeon privately one evening. "I'm sorry for how things happened," he said quietly. "I didn't stop it. I should have." Simeon listened silently, absorbing the rare admission. "Thank you," he replied after a moment. They weren't suddenly close, but something softened between them. Daniel didn't ask for money. He didn't justify the past. He simply tried to show up in small, steady ways that didn't demand anything in return. It was a quiet effort, but it mattered. Simeon appreciated it because sincere effort was worth more than any apology spoken loudly. Months later, Maya presented her parents with a short film she made as a school project. It was about standing up for yourself, using your voice, and choosing kindness over pressure. She included scenes with colored lights, creative cuts, and a small animation she made herself. "I wanted it to mean something," she said proudly. Mary felt tears in her eyes. Simeon pulled Maya into a hug, whispering, "You're stronger than you know." Maya grinned. "Because you helped me be brave." Mary and Simeon exchanged a glance, one full of gratitude, relief, and a shared understanding of everything their family overcame. On a calm Saturday afternoon, the three of them sat together in the living room, the sunlight spilling through the windows. Maya worked on a new editing project, occasionally asking for help. Simeon leaned back on the couch, finally relaxed in a way Mary hadn't seen for years. "Do you ever think about how different things are now?" Mary asked softly. Simeon nodded. "I didn't realize how much peace we were missing," he said. Mary rested her head on his shoulder. "You protected your daughter," she whispered. "You changed the story." Simeon smiled faintly. "She changed mine too." Their home had become a place of safety, free from manipulation, free from guilt, free from the constant drain that once shadowed their days. Maya no longer feared losing someone's love over material things. Mary no longer worried about unspoken tensions. And Simeon finally no longer believed he needed to buy peace to earn family. Boundaries had rebuilt them. Truth had freed them. And the love inside their home had grown stronger than the pressure outside it. In the end, they learned the simplest truth of all. Family is not defined by demands, only by the people who choose to love without conditions.